Good morning, my lovelies, or good afternoon, wherever you are. Actually, it's afternoon for me because I slept in late. So this is another part of my story. I've been kind of debating on how to approach it. It's a really rough, kind of hard time during my life. So this is not to glorify it or, make it sound cool or whatever. It's actually pretty sad. So here we go. We're gonna pick up where we left off at the age of 12 when I came back from Georgia, started smoking, the ganja. And my how I got into harder drugs is a story I've told a few times. I actually, was smoking for a long time or smoking for a while and made me feel really good. And then one night I walked in on some family members. We're just going to leave it at that, and they were rolling something in like a glass, utensil or a glass, whatever you would call it. So I saw them doing that and I asked them what it was, and they told me, and I told them that I wanted to try some, and I did. I was fought at first, but I was pretty convincing. And pretty much, I was really spoiled as a child and pretty much got told yes to a lot of things. And so I was told yes. So I hit it and I fell in love. It was like a romantic movie where, you meet a guy and they just instantly fall in love. Well, that's what it was like for me. If you want to know the feelings that it gives, it's euphoric, makes you feel like you're on top of the world, makes you feel like you're invincible. It takes all your cares and worries away, and that is what I needed and craved at the time. And so I fell in love with it. I don't know what I can call it on here, so I'm gonna call it I guess. But it's ethamphetamine. We'll use Pig Latin again. I don't know what I can and can't say. And it made me, stay up at night. I was happy. I was by myself. I was doing my own thing. I told y'all I was very independent and very, just did my own thing and like to sing and dance and act and things like that. And so it gave me all this energy. And I lost a very significant amount of weight because I was overweight at that point because I had been, and just very depressed. And so I had gained quite a bit of weight. I was like 160 on I was maybe 5'1", something like that. And so I lost like 60 pounds in 2 months after, starting. So I gained confidence. I felt worthy. I felt wanted. I felt loved. I felt, cool. I felt all these things that I had never felt my entire life. And I didn't, think badly about myself anymore. I didn't, it took all of those feelings away. So I started doing it every day. And not, a lot. It was, a very small amount, but I did some every day. I went to school messed up. I went to, when I went to school messed up. When I started the ninth grade, I knew a few people. I didn't have a lot of friends really because I hardly ever went to school. I didn't hang out with anybody, but I did have a few friends. And surprisingly, the few friends that I did meet and end up hanging out with were already doing it. There was a few, I was doing like the athletic training program for the football team. There were a few football team members that had never done it, and I introduced it to them and kind of got them on it. So during this time, we were all living in Louisville. Me, my mom, my aunt, my grandpa, and my cousin. We had all moved into one big old house in Louisville. So I was going to Louisville, high school. At that point, I was hanging out with my friends, and we were getting. I showed them the right way to do it because they were not doing it the right way. They used to smoke it off of like tinfoil with like a straw, and like you have to light the bottom of the tinfoil, and you have to like smoke like. They were doing it that way, and I showed them how to do it the right way, which is to get an incense burner. There you go. That's the word for it. An incense burner, and do it that way. So these were the years between about 13 and 16 is whenever I was, going to high school, hanging out with my friends, and we would like, we would do it. We would, stay up all night, play dominoes, play cards, just drive around. I mean, just do just stupid stuff that absolutely had no meaning whatsoever. We would just do, basically. We were just up and high, and that's all we knew, and we were living our lives. So at around the age of 16, I met a band player, or a guy in a band, and he played the piano. And he was a much older man. He was in his 40s, and I was 16 at the time. I don't even really kind of remember how it started. It casually started, I guess. I just got this fix. I don't know. Now let's go back to, my childhood, and stating that I never had a father, right? So I was always searching for a father figure in my life, like a father or something, or a guy. It was always a guy that, not saying I thought of them as my father, but when a girl doesn't have a daddy in her life, she's always searching for a daddy. Well, so that's kind of what it was. So I was always searching for a guy, or like the daddy complex. Not really sure how it happened, but it did evolve into a relationship. It was kept quiet at first, and then it kind of came out in the open. When my mom was not approve, she did not approve of it. But at that point, she had kind of lost control of me, because I was already doing all these things, and I was already, so independent, and doing my own thing. And she couldn't really tell me no. She didn't. I didn't allow her to tell me no. I just did what I wanted. So I would go over to his house and hang out, and he groomed me very well. He also introduced me to pills, so like Xanax, Valiums, hydrocodones. He started feeding me all of these things. And he also introduced me to something called GHB, which I don't know the technical term for it. I just know it's called GHB, but they do call it where you give it to somebody on a date, and then they pass out and you do what you want to them. It's for that purpose. So let's talk about the things that happened to me while I was in that situation. Things that happened to me while I was in that situation were, one time he had given me some GHB, and it was too much. And I woke up outside by the pool with my pants off. I had no idea what happened. I had no memory of what happened. That was one instance that happened. A second instance was, he actually had a friend of his, a golf friend of his, that he just told me that we were just going over there to hang out, and just chill or whatever. And we ended up going over to this golf friend's house, and everybody was hot, smoking and doing the GHB, and he left me there that night. And I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure I know what happened, but I don't really remember it. I just remember being picked up the next morning. So those are the kind of things that happened to me whenever I was with him. I eventually ended up getting pregnant. I was still 16 at the time. This all happened within that period. And when I told him that I was, pregnant, what he told me was that I was HOE, and that it wasn't his. And, basically, you don't want to be a 45-year-old man having a 16-year-old girl pregnant. That, that's not very good for the DNA, looking for the DNA. So he kind of kicked me out at that point, and I, went on my own, and he just fought me the whole time, that it wasn't his. And we kind of lost a lot of contact after that. All right, so that brings us up to my first pregnancy at the age of 16. This is kind of already a long video, so I'm going to cut it short for here. If you've watched this far, I really appreciate it, and thank you for listening to my story. I will continue to do more. Hope you guys have a great day.